Hello and welcome to Too Long Don't Listen. I'm Senda. I'm your host. I've been your host for the past 50 episodes, and today I'm recording a solo episode because some of you asked me to do it. For those of you who are new to the podcast, let me give you a quick and short intro. Essentially, I started Too Long Don't Listen because there was a gap between students wanting to figure out what they want to do next in their career and young professionals who are also still figuring out what they want to do with their career. And there was just this gap of knowledge share that I thought could be bridged if only we started having conversations and recording them and sharing them. So I started the podcast inviting my friends initially, and then it kind of branched out into more people reaching out to me or friends connecting me with more people who would also be super interesting to have on the podcast. And so today, looking back, I've recorded 50 episodes, and it's been quite a journey for me. For those of you who know me, you know that podcasting has been taking a big, big place in my heart and in my life. And I can't stop doing it. So I'm not going to stop, obviously, inviting guests to the podcast. I think that's what makes Too Long Don't Listen so special. It's about the conversations that we're able to have. And I'm super grateful to everyone that was part of these conversations. It's thanks to you guys that I was able to do this and put this together. But so today, as I said, it's a bit different. I'm launching a solo format because there's a lot of topics that came up during conversations or after some episodes were launched. And I decided to share a poll on Instagram. If you don't follow me, my page is Too Long Don't Listen. And most of you voted for a specific topic. So I shared 3 different topics, one about building your CV, one about talking about imposter syndrome, and other topics around our career, like what are the challenges that we're facing. And the one that got most votes, almost 70% of the votes, went to dreaming versus executing. I think the podcast is all about identifying dreams and passions and talking to people who were able to take that step to actually make it a full-time job or a business or just going for it. And there's this idea that, sometimes what we dream is just a dream, like the definition of a dream is actually stories that live in your head and are not coming to real life. But actually, there's another definition of what a dream is. And I'm taking this from the Cambridge Dictionary. The definition of a dream is a cherished aspiration, ambition, or ideal. So it could be, an idealization that you have of your future, of your career, or maybe you see yourself somewhere in the future, but you just feel like it's too far away from you and you can't really grasp that and you can't make it concrete or build something around it. And so I thought that the best way to approach this topic actually is to use examples of people who came on Too Long to Listen, who shared their stories, and then draw patterns across these examples. So I've picked a few for this episode. And the first thing that I'm going to do is take you through 3 episodes, 3 actual stories, like true, real stories of people who went from dreaming to executing. And I picked these based on, well, how far ago I recorded the episode, because I thought we could also assess where this person is now and give like a little update. But also I've picked stories that are very different so we can kind of identify those patterns. And so let's start with the first one. And I'm going to go chronologically with the order of episode recordings. The first one is Khulan. Khulan joined me on the 4th episode of Too Long Don't Listen, and she talked about her dream of working in tech. So the reason why I picked Khulan is because her story is pretty interesting. Well, first of all, she did not study anything related to tech. That's the first thing that I love about this person. Khulan is also a very close friend of mine, so I'm happy that I can use her as an example here. But essentially, Khulan studied her bachelor's at SOAS University in London. and she studied international relations. But during her studies, she felt like she wanted to explore her passion for design. She's extremely talented, and so she started branching out to startups, small companies, non for profit, who were looking for students to work with them. And that's how she kind of built up her skills. She grew in that designer role while studying international relations. So, again, two super unrelated things that she managed to bring together. And then she managed to get internships at tech companies like Adobe, where she worked as a designer as well, and slowly built her career in the tech space while having a super different background, a super different degree. She was able to carve her way through that ideal situation. And when I spoke to Khulan, she did tell me that yes, her dream was to work in a big tech company, and more specifically at Google, because she wanted to build that brand for herself. She wanted that credibility on her CV, and that's where she wanted to go. So she clearly identified that need and what she had to do to get there. Today, 2 years later, Kulan lives in New York City. She works at Google as a cloud solutions consultant. And on the side, she also has her own designer agency, which I think is incredible because she managed to keep that passion going while working in that company. Another example is coming from episode 14. This was an episode recorded in French with Malo. Episode 14 is called How to Cross the English Channel. So this guy wanted to cross the English Channel. And for those of you who don't know, basically, crossing the English Channel by swimming is probably one of the biggest challenges out there. We're talking about 21 miles or 34 kilometers swimming. You need to cope with the water temperatures. It's freezing. The weather conditions are unexpected as well. You don't really know what's going to happen on the day of the swim. And of course, you need a lot of discipline. And what I found very impressive with Malo when I interviewed him, it was actually his second time going for it. So again, this guy just woke up one day and he was like, I'm going to do this. Like, this is a challenge. This is an aspiration of mine. I just want to go for it. He figured out what was needed from him to get there. He had a clear training. He reached out to people to help him. So he had a clear, like, strong support system. And then I spoke to him right before he tried it for the second time, and he just went for it again. Like, it was super challenging. I honestly think you guys should listen to it. Maybe, it's in French, but for the French speakers listening to this, I think it's worth giving it a listen. But overall, I was very impressed by his story. And I think the key takeaway for me from that conversation was the need for discipline and the difference between motivation and discipline. Like, you can be extremely motivated and you think, okay, this is my dream. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do everything I can. But if you don't have the discipline behind that, you won't go anywhere. So that's one thing I remember from that episode. And finally, the third one, which illustrates this idea of like dreaming versus executing, is one of the latest episodes with Emily, episode number 47. Emily is today a very known travel vlogger. She has a YouTube channel with thousands of subscribers. Same goes for Instagram. She started doing these amazing vlogs about specific countries she visited because back in the day, after graduating from chemical engineering, she found that traveling was a passion of hers and she wanted to make that her career. And she was like, okay, what can I do to get there? And what's needed from me to get to a position where I don't have to worry about money, but also I can do what I love every day without really having to worry about being a chemical engineer, I guess. And so Emily made it work. I mean, today she lives in Tunisia. She's been there for half a year now, and she's been recording a lot of very cool videos about the culture there, how people talk, what we like to eat, how we kind of interact with each other. She's even learning how to speak Arabic, which I found very, very impressive. And she just made it happen, after years of experimenting different formats. She traveled to Asia and then to Lebanon and different countries across Europe. She knew what she was going for, and she went for it again. Like that's kind of the we're almost seeing a pattern here between these three examples. So now I'm going to wrap this up and go back to our question: what is dreaming versus executing? I think after listening, these are just three examples, but if you listen to any episode of Too Long to Listen, all of them kind of illustrate this idea of I've identified that this is where I wanted to be, this is what I wanted to become. And I just had to understand what were the steps to get there. And then, of course, I had to do it. So I had to execute. And I'm going to summarize three key learnings or three key things um, that I hope you guys take away from this episode. The first one is if you or anyone has a dream, because again, I think it's important to say that dreams are extremely subjective. It depends on your scope, right? It depends on your own ambitions. Someone can dream of becoming a billionaire, someone can dream of going to a Taylor Swift concert. It's very different goals and very different ambitions, but it doesn't matter what it is, right? If you've identified something that drives you, something that brings you energy and triggers your motivation and your drive, I think that means that you've identified a dream. You have something you want to work towards. And I'm going to here quote someone also who joined me on episode number 30. His name is Joseph Liu. He's a career consultant and expert. And we had a very interesting conversation because he mentioned the notion of defining what energizes you, and that's going to help you find your passion, and also the career that will make you happy and that will drive you. And so I would apply this to, again, that dream that you find. If it's something that gives you energy, if it's something that you believe in, it's worth pursuing. So that's number one. Number two is once you've identified your dream, how can you break it down into realistic steps? So going back to the examples I've listed, Khulan, for example, she had a clear idea of what she needed to do to get to Google. She identified that she was good at designing. She applied to internships. She worked for no money for a bit, just for experience. She prioritized experience early on in her career. She didn't optimize for money, and that led her to securing a job at Adobe and then further down the line at Google. So she had a clear process in place. And I think once you've identified your dream, how big or small it is, it's easy to break it down into realistic steps for you. And finally, number three, which is going to sound extremely generic and almost like a Nike commercial, but I'm just going to say it: go for it. Right? Like, I think that the biggest thread of success that I've identified through all the stories I've heard and meeting people who really just went for it is they don't wait for doing it. Like, they don't wait for executing. They don't have excuses that are going to slow them down from the idealization to execution. And I think that's what you need to figure out. Like, once you have your process and your steps, why are you waiting? Like, what's keeping you from going for it? And I think unless there's a clear blocker that you weren't able to solve, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to find and channel all that energy that made this a dream in the first place and turn it into an actionable plan to finally, executing on that plan. So those are the three things. Number one, identify your dream. Number two, define a clear process. And number three, follow and execute on your process. So I hope that was helpful and interesting. I also hope that you took away a few key things from this episode. But most importantly, I hope you were able to apply this thinking and will be able to apply this thinking into your actual dreams and passions. Because one thing I truly believe in, and the reason why I started this podcast in the first place, we can all achieve it. I think we can all achieve what we set our mind to doing. And I really, really hope this will give you the extra motivation to do it And of course, never forget the discipline behind it because you need to stick to your plan. So, yeah, that's it from me. I'm hoping to record more of these short solo episodes with the aim of kind of balancing out the conversational episodes with more practical, action driven episodes. If you have ideas, please reach out to me. You can find all my details in the links on my Instagram page. Again, my Instagram is at too long don't listen. Please give me a follow, reach out to me. I'm always open to collaborating or just talking about the challenges that you are facing in your career or in your day to day as a young individual in your 20s trying to figure things out. Join me on Too Long to Listen for more. And yeah, can't wait to see you soon.